for more about the state of the auto sector, I guess, in the U.S. and around the world. Lauren Fix joins us again. She's the editor-in-chief of Car Coach Reports. Good to see you. Let me start with the news from Ford, because while I think some of us were expecting something to happen, some of the numbers are a little bit of a head-scratcher. I'll just kind of read what Sean Fain wrote from the UAW. The lowest-paid workers at Ford will see a raise of 150% over the life of the agreement, and some workers will get an 85% raise. When you and I spoke, there was some red lines that would essentially sink the car companies and make them uncompetitive. Is this one of them?
Well, it's certainly going to make it more difficult for them to make more profit. The big number one issue was that, and they dropped it off the table, was we want to work 32 hours and get paid for 40, but everyone would like that. So obviously that was first taken off the table. The other one was offering health care benefits to retirees, and that's very expensive. That would be for life. So in order to do that for all past employees, that's what put the car makers upside down last time, and they had to go to the federal government for bailouts. So we know that those two were taken off the table. But you're looking at now a starting rate of about $28 an hour with the new agreement once it's been voted on, once it's been ratified, and then we'll see a maximum of about $41 an hour. So that is a lot of money. But you remember, these people are working a lot of hours. They work a lot of overtime. I think you're going to, I'm wondering what the car companies are thinking, because that's a massive increase of about 25%. So are they going to be building new plants in other countries, other states? Well, I know that that's already happening. For example, the Lincoln Aviator, which we saw earlier last year, they're going to be building it in China fully. It's going to come to the U.S.
I heard Mary Barra, the president, or CEO, I should say, of GM, express her frustration that, hey, this is the best offer on the table. And I don't know if it's 25% or not, but there's always been a talk that there is a number. And one of the key issues is that you can pay people as much as you want, but ultimately you might end up with less people, right? I mean, you can't pay everybody a lot of money.
Right. What they did is they cut down the tiers. There were so many tiers from the point you started to the point where you'd been there 40 years. Obviously, someone who's been there 40 years, who's got all these great skills, deserves to get paid more than someone who just strolled in the door for day one. So they are changing some of that. The cost of living, which they desperately needed, they were definitely getting underpaid. It is a huge jump. And I think what you're going to see as the offset to this, and this is what I don't know if Stellantis is going to agree to this. General Motors might, but Ford and GM showed a huge profit in the last quarter, and they announced it literally that day, and hours later they shut down the SUV plant in Arlington, Texas. And so when Ford was ready to announce their earnings, they said, you know what, we better come up with a way to settle this, or they're coming after us even stronger than they have, and they can't afford that. So I think what's going to happen, as you're saying, is you're going to see them offsetting by making more electric vehicles needs 40% less workers, making things in other countries.
I am a firm believer that you should treat your workers, especially ones with loyalty, the best you can. Of course, you want the survival of the company. There's a line in here that is a little bit of a surprise. It says, this agreement includes a historic right to strike over a potential closure, a first for any union that I've heard of. So let me get this straight. If the factory closes, Sean Fain wants to go on strike over the closure? So are they saying they can't close any factories?
Well, that's the union factories. They don't care about non-union factories, only union factories. So when you're thinking about like Ford, they're building a gigantic battery plant in Tennessee. It's non-union. General Motors is building a gigantic battery plant in Nevada, a non-union state. So whether the UAW is going to put their pressure on to make those union houses, that may be possible. But think about that. That's really kind of expectations of them thinking, yeah, they're going to make up the difference by shutting down all these plants. I don't think Stellantis will make that deal. And the reason I don't think they will is they're based in France. PSA is who owns Stellantis. That is backed by a company called Exor, E-X-O-R. And John Elkann is the financier behind this company. And they're all part of FCA, you know, think of Fiat and Ferrari and all that. That is where all of that is coming from. They're a different car company. They're not based in the U.S. And if they choose to do what they do with like the Hornet, where they're bringing it to the U.S. and putting some Dodge badging on it, there's nothing the UAW can do. So that's why I don't think that all the car manufacturers are in the same place. Stellantis might just say, you know what? We're going to build stuff in other countries, Mexico, Canada, whatever. But we still have to keep our eyes on Unifor. Unifor is the UAW of Canada. As of Friday, tomorrow, it's highly likely Stellantis could go on strike. Ford has settled, General Motors has settled, but Stellantis has not. And I'm watching this very carefully because this could impact what Stellantis' next move will be.
Right, Lauren, we don't need any more drama in this strike.
No.
Real quick, I've got about 30 seconds. Just give me the state of the U.S. car industry. There's been some talk that we're seeing car loans defaults. We're seeing the consumers being impacted. Are you seeing that?
Yes, absolutely. You've got recession, you got high interest rates. The UAW strike didn't help the dealers because that's where the local money is. With the chip shortage and everything else. We're also seeing an interesting pushback from Toyota and other car companies on batteries. Honda and General Motors had an agreement, $6.5 billion. That agreement was separated as of yesterday. So that means electric car vehicles, making them low price here in the U.S. Well, maybe the government wants it, but consumers are not buying them. And so we're going to see what happens next if the manufacturers are going to push back and say, we're not going to do it. You can't make us take a loss on every single car.
Lauren, we always enjoy talking with you about cars, and we can go on for a long time. Appreciate your time. I'll see you next time.
Thank you. Take care.
In Brazil, the government there is concerned